Attention all residents. Last night, 5 dogs walked into the woods, but this morning, 7 came back. One of them might be yours, because the pattern has changed. Dogs are no longer leading people into the woods. They're bringing something back. If your dog returned after a woodline incident, it is no longer safe to touch, feed, or even look at. Stay until the end to understand what's happening and what they're waiting for. If you're receiving this broadcast, we urge you to remain calm and listen carefully. The information that follows may conflict with previous safety directives issued in recent weeks. That is because the pattern has changed. Until now, reported incidents involved domestic dogs leading their owners into wooded areas and returning alone. Those who disappeared were presumed lost, and the dogs, despite their altered behavior, were treated as anomalous but non-aggressive. That understanding is no longer sufficient. New cases indicate that the animals who returned have begun changing further. In the last 72 hours, over 24 households across 3 districts have reported identical behaviors from dogs previously involved in a woodline incident. These animals, thought dormant or harmless, have begun acting again, this time without provocation. They do not whine at the door. They do not move toward the woods. Instead, they return to the room where their owner slept, sit beside the bed, and stare at the wall for hours. In the morning, they begin to dig, always the same spot, always the same time, 3:12 a.m. Owners describe a rhythmic pawing into soil, tile, carpet, whatever stands between the animal and the ground beneath. No barking, no play, just digging. One owner reported finding their dog in the exact same position each morning, as if frozen mid-motion. When moved, the dog resisted, not aggressively, but with a tension that suggests the act is not a choice. One woman in Brookpine Hollow recorded her Labrador Retriever outside before dawn. In the footage, the dog stops digging and turns sharply to face the woods. Moments later, a second dog, identical in every visible way, emerges from the trees and stands beside it. The recording ends abruptly. The woman has not been seen since. Last night, security footage from 5 different neighborhoods captured dogs congregating, without human prompting, at the edge of the woods. They arrive separately, some from miles apart, and stand shoulder to shoulder, facing the trees. No barking, no movement, still as statues. Some remain that way until dawn. Others vanish into the woods one by one. In one clip, the camera's microphone picks up a low-frequency sound, inaudible to the human ear, but detected on spectral analysis. It's not barking, it's not growling, it's a sustained, oscillating hum. Experts are calling it a vocalization, but from what remains unclear. What we do know is this: after each of these gatherings, the dogs return, and they do not come back empty. Several households have reported dogs arriving with foreign objects in their mouths. Not sticks, not bones, but scraps of fabric, shreds of clothing, and in one case, a child's shoe soaked through with a substance that could not be tested due to chemical instability. In another, a leash was found coiled around the dog's neck. The leash was taut, as if connected to something, but there was nothing on the other end. We cannot explain where these objects are coming from or how the dogs are retrieving them. But in each case, the family has reported previous dreams, memories, or conversations about the missing person whose belongings were found. If this was grief or trauma or coincidence, we could say so, but we cannot, because last night, in 3 separate homes, dogs returned with objects that belonged to individuals never publicly identified as missing. In one case, a toothbrush. In another, a burned journal page that referenced a name never disclosed to the press. Information no dog should know, but they did. This leads us to a disturbing development. Several households who resisted their dog's first attempt to lead them into the woods are now reporting new incidents. The dogs have begun standing beside their owner's bed at night. Not barking, not whining, just standing. For hours. In multiple reports, the owners claim to have fallen asleep in their bed and awoke at the edge of the woods. No signs of struggle, no forced entry, no recollection of how they got there. Just the dog waiting. And in each case, the subject returned home with no memory of how. A veterinary nurse who attempted to sedate her own dog during one of these incidents reported that the needle bent upon injection. The animal did not react. Hours later, she was found on her porch, eyes bloodshot, teeth clenched, repeating a single phrase. It walked through the door. Authorities found no signs of forced entry. No paw prints, no dog. More alarming still, the dog was in the backyard kennel the entire time. Several other survivors have reported auditory hallucinations, panting in the walls, claws scraping beneath floorboards, despite the dog being in another room. One family placed salt around their bedroom and woke to find the line unbroken, but 2 sets of paw prints inside. One matched their retriever. The other was larger, much larger. They now sleep in the living room. The dog sits in the hallway, staring. There have also been reports, isolated but increasing, of speech. It begins as breathy mimicry, soft vowel sounds, huffs of air resembling tone. But then it progresses, long wet syllables, words that aren't quite formed. Then names. One man claims to have heard his dog whisper his wife's name the night before she disappeared. When asked what the dog said, he refused to answer. He now sleeps in his car, and the dog remains in the house, waiting. We understand these reports are difficult to believe. That's why, until now, they've been excluded from public briefings. But the volume and consistency of these accounts have surpassed coincidence. The dogs are not just returning, they are recruiting. This broadcast is being issued with new protocols, effective immediately. If your dog returned from the woods during the previous incidents, do not speak to it. Do not touch it. Do not feed it from your hand. Avoid eye contact, especially between midnight and 4 a.m. If your dog speaks, do not answer. If it calls your name, do not follow. If it enters your bedroom, leave immediately and do not return until sunrise. These guidelines are not suggestions, they are survival measures. Understand this, the creature that sits in your hallway is no longer your dog. It may respond to its name. It may wag its tail. It may even perform old tricks. That is because it remembers how to be your dog. It remembers your routines, your habits, your voice. It remembers enough to mimic loyalty. But the thing that loved you is gone. Something else wears its shape now. It has learned your house. It has learned your voice. It has learned your weaknesses. And it is no longer waiting to be followed. It is waiting to be invited in. This concludes Emergency Broadcast File 014B. Further instructions will follow. Remain indoors. Keep all doors and windows locked. And if you hear your dog whispering on the other side of the door, you must understand, it is not asking you. It is calling you.